Hi there, this is Kendall from Sager Family Farm, and today I wanted to show you how to make sourdough braided egg bread. This is one of my favorite recipes because it uses honey from my bees, eggs from my chickens, and my latest pandemic project, sourdough starter. If you want to see more of my farm videos, make sure to subscribe below. I have two versions of this recipe in the description. For this video, I'm using sourdough starter, but I also have a simpler recipe without it. The first step is to feed our starter the night before we start our recipe. Take 1/2 cup of sourdough discard, which is unfed starter, 2/3 cup of water. I like to throw in 1/4 teaspoon of yeast just to give it a little boost, and mix it all together. Now add 2.5 cups of flour and mix again. It will look pretty dry. I use my hands to get the last bits together. Once you have formed it into a ball, coat a bowl with olive oil and roll the dough around to coat it as well. Cover the bowl with saran wrap and leave it overnight, up to 18 hours. The next morning, the starter will have risen and will be fluffy and gooey. Now we're ready to add our other ingredients. First, take 1/3 cup of milk and microwave it for about 20 seconds or so, just to warm it slightly. Add another 1/4 teaspoon of yeast and 2 tablespoons of honey. Stir it together and let it sit for 10 minutes to wake up the yeast. Then add it to the bowl with your starter. Now add 4 tablespoons melted butter, 2 eggs, and 2 teaspoons of salt. Mix it all together. Last, we'll add 2.5 cups of flour. Mix it all together with a spatula or a fancy dough whisk like mine. Once it starts coming together, I switch to using my hands. Sprinkle flour on your countertop and press the dough together. Knead the dough for about 10 minutes by hand, or if you have a stand mixer with a dough hook, you can throw it in there for 5 minutes. Don't skimp on the kneading. This is a great task for little helpers if you have some running around the house. When you're done kneading, put your dough into an oiled bowl and cover. Let it rise for 2 to 3 hours or until it's doubled in size. After your dough has risen, it's time to shape it into what you want your loaf to look like. It's actually pretty easy to make it into a gorgeous braid. First, shape the dough into a long rectangle. Cut your rectangle into 4 strips. Grease a baking sheet with vegetable shortening or oil and move your dough strips onto the sheet. To braid the dough, always start with the top strip and weave it over the second strip, under the third strip, and over the fourth strip. Shift all of the strips back up so they stay near the center of the pan, and then repeat over, under, over, always starting with the top strip until you reach the end. Tuck the ends underneath to neaten them up and let your braided dough raise for 30 to 60 minutes. Towards the end of the rise time, turn on your oven to 350 degrees. Take 1 egg, whisk it together, and coat your loaf right before you put it in the oven. This will help it turn a shiny golden brown color when baking. Bake your loaf for 30 minutes. You can tell it's done when it sounds hollow when you knock on it. Here's where the recipe says to let it cool, but once you smell this, you'll probably just start eating it right away. If there's any left the next day, it makes excellent French toast. Enjoy the fresh baked bread, and see you next time on the farm.